Yo, what's going on, everybody? We're back for the second episode of the day of the Two-Man Advantage podcast. Last time was the Phillies recap, and this time we are rolling in with the Yankees preview. I'm Jordan Leandri, joined by Dylan Kapiski. Has anything changed in the last 5 minutes? Or are you the same person?
I'm super pumped.
Yes.
I'm really excited for the series. I'm very angry because I have to work at a semi-real job tonight, and I'm going to miss probably the first 7 innings of the start. Meanwhile, you're going to be just sitting there and just sending me pictures that are going to make me super jealous while you're sitting in right field. But, you know what, whatever. It's fine. I'll get over it. I just hate you for a little bit, and then on Monday, I'll just be very angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk about this series. I'm really excited to watch this series. I'm really excited to just talk about this series after it happens. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so am I, and it seems to be the par for the course. Even when like the Red Sox aren't that good or the Yankees aren't that good, just an overall feeling of when these two teams face each other is just through the roof. And then now that they're both vying for the American League East, both of them are on pace for over 100 wins. It just has a whole new dynamic to it that makes you super fired up to watch this thing take place. Especially now you get 4 games of it. You get a long weekend series. That is absolutely beautiful.
You're potentially looking at the ALDS matchup right now, just minus 1 game.
Right, and the fact that the Red Sox could realistically exit the series. Now, if it's a sweep either way, the Red Sox exit the series with a 9-game lead in the AL East, which pretty much wraps it up, I would think, or a 1-game lead.
We still got to play them, like 6 more times?
Or a 1-game lead. Yeah, but with how the Yankees play against teams that the Red Sox pummel, I am not overly concerned if they exit the series with a 9-game lead, especially since Sale's no longer pitching one of the games.
Yeah, they're supposed to go tonight.
Yep, and that hurts my feelings a lot.
Yeah, he just didn't want to see you. That's it.
He was like, "Oh, Jordan's coming again. I've seen him so many times this year. I've seen him pitch twice this year. And it was back in when it snowed, and then against Oakland where he only went 5. So I haven't experienced a Sale day to the likes of which others have experienced, and it's really upsetting."
He went 7 when I went.
Cry. He didn't get a win.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, he did. Never mind.
Yeah. So
I just tried to downplay the whole thing.
Yeah,
and to settle the dispute from a couple podcasts ago, I was wrong. Sale's not guaranteed next year. It's an option, but they'd be stupid not to take it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Oh, God. I'm still nervous for that. Anyway, let's get into this. Who do you think? Because I just said let's get into this, but this is the second time that we're previewing a series. Last time it was the Phillies one. It was 2 games. We didn't really know what the hell we were doing. But this time we actually have a game plan. We actually have an outline of what we're going to do. We actually have structure and whatnot. So you're going to see that unfold, but I thought that it was worth pointing out that we've actually come prepared for once.
It's wild. Don't get used to it though, people.
No. Maybe we'd be a little bit more prepared as we get later into the season and towards playoff time, but no promises. But yeah, we do have some structure, and that structure is going to start with part 1. That's going to be who the big players overall are going to be in this huge series.
I think to start off with, one of the big names that's going to have to perform this series is David Price, and I think that's an obvious answer, considering how overall I know he had that 8 innings shutout or 8 innings of shutout ball last year against the Yankees at Fenway, but overall in his Red Sox career, the Yankees have hit him pretty hard. So it's essential that he pitches well, especially since Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge, 2 guys that have success against him over the course of his Red Sox career, aren't in the lineup. Both of them on the disabled list. Judge broke his hand, and Sanchez strained his groin. David Price has to have a big start on Sunday night. I know it's the last game of the series, but he's gonna have to have a big series. I think obviously you look to your big guns like Mookie and JD, and you want them to have big series because that's where I know Mookie hasn't hit his payday yet, but that's coming soon. And JD Martinez has, so you want those 2 guys to have big series. But in terms of who I think is going to have a big series, it's going to be interesting because I'm going to say Ian Kinsler is going to have a huge series. And I know that might just be wishful thinking because the Red Sox just acquired him, and obviously you want him to get hot right away. But he's going to get thrown to the Wolves tonight. I know he had that one game against the Phillies, but he's here now, and he's going to have 4 games against the Yankees. I'm assuming he'll play at least 3 of them. But if he can have a big series, he's going to steal the hearts of a lot of Red Sox fans, especially ones that were a little bit suspect of making a move for him, considering how low his numbers have been all season, regardless of how he played the final month he was with the Angels. He's one of my picks as a position player to have a big series here against the Yankees because he's just a true professional. He's always come through in big situations, and I don't think he'll let the moment get too big for him. And he's new enough to the point where I don't think he really understands the whole feeling of the rivalry, but I think he will have a big series in this one.
I'm actually going to go with I'm going to take a look at this from the Yankees' perspective of who needs to have a big series and then who is going to have a big series. I think you need Stanton to have a big series because, like you said, Sanchez and Judge both out. That really leaves Stanton to have to carry that load of being the guy that is capable of hitting the way that Sanchez and Judge potentially would in this series. So it'll be interesting to watch and see if he does pick up that slack, for lack of a better word, or if he just plays average ball, average in air quotes, because it's Stanton, even his average is slightly above. But I think for who is going to have a big series for New York, I think a sleeper here almost is going to be Gleyber Torres. We saw him in the last series. He kind of hit well against the Sox, kind of hit us around.
Particularly Price.
Yeah, and with Price going on Sunday night, that's a game that Torres could do a lot more damage. But moving to the Red Sox side of things now, I'm not going to really talk about which pitchers I think are going to have good starts because we're going to get into that a bit later. But yeah, I'm interested that you said Kinsler. Of course, you mentioned the game he had against Philadelphia, and he did have an impact running the bases, and we forgot to actually bring this up. But a heads-up base running move where he was on first, and there was an attempted pickoff that just skipped right by the first baseman. And Kinsler, being the smart base runner that he is, was able to swipe 2 bags and get up to third. Unfortunately, Eduardo Nunez did absolutely nothing with it, and the Red Sox couldn't put that run on the board. But he has already proven to be some kind of a factor. But I'm going to go with Benintendi for who I think is going to have a big series. Not quite sure why, but he did hit the ball well against Severino. And I just like Benny, so I do think he's going to have at least a good series. Might not be a standout series, he might not be the best player, but I think he's a safe hand to put some money in.
Having completely ignored the fact that I should have probably picked a couple of guys from the Yankees' perspective too. As for a guy that I think needs to have a big series, you said Stanton. I mean, obviously you would like him to or not, we wouldn't like him to.
No, we would hate it if he did.
If you were a Yankees fan, you would hope that he was able to fill the void of Judge and Sanchez in this series in particular, because this is a huge series for. I think it's more huge for the Yankees in the fact that they're 5 games back right now. The Red Sox have a little bit of wiggle room, but they can leave with a split and it hurts the Yankees more than it hurts the Red Sox. So, in my opinion, the guy that needs to have a big series is Didi Gregorius, and for that reason alone, that he was red hot to start the year. I mean, people were talking about him being a potential MVP candidate just through April because he was hitting it was like 350. He already had like 13 home runs, and then he completely fell off the face of the earth for like 2 months. He had like a 30-game stretch where he was hitting under 100. He's kind of averaged out to around 260, but he needs to have a big series. I think it could be a clash of great shortstops, especially from the American League East perspective. He needs to have a big series. Obviously, you would like it as a Yankees fan to see Stanton do the same, but I think it's more important because you know what kind of player Stanton is. Didi Gregorius has been so up and down this year that if he has a big series in this 4-game set, that I think you as a Red Sox fan should be more concerned than if Stanton does, because Stanton's Stanton, and he should hit the ball well at Fenway Park. I mean, it's just the nature of his swing and his power that he should have a big series here. But obviously, the first time they came here, it wasn't as impressive as we had expected. For who I think will have a big series for the Yankees, and I'm going to try and shy away from a pitcher because I said David Price for the Red Sox. I'm going to go out and say Greg Bird or Gleyber Torres. Someone on the right side of that infield is going to have a big series. Greg Bird, for some reason, I feel like every single time I've been, especially that I've been to a game, or I've watched a game on TV that he's played in, he's homered off the Red Sox. And it's been a pretty big home run. I know in the game that Erod pitched at Yankee Stadium, and he gets in. Mind you, Greg Bird can't hit against left-handed pitching. But they had him in the lineup because I believe Neil Walker was hurt, and that was their backup first baseman at the time. But he had 2 home runs in the game. I know one of them was off Justin Haley, so I mean, like, people will say it doesn't count because Haley's a AAA pitcher. But I mean, He pummeled one the other way off of Erod. I mean, it was only like a second row shot, but I mean, it went to left center field, so he kind of got a pretty good piece of it. But Greg Bird, I think, will have a pretty big series, because I feel like in these kind of series, it's always somebody that you don't expect. Like I said, Kinsler for the Red Sox, and I don't think a lot of people will expect him to have a big series, but I kind of do. And Greg Bird's the same way for me. It's always somebody that you don't expect to have a big series that will wind up having a huge series.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go against the Kinsler pick there, because where he is just traded and where this is such a big series, he's probably thinking he needs to prove himself. Not that he needs to prove himself. He's been in the league long enough that pretty much everybody knows what he's about. But I think he does want to go out there and say, hey, you picked me up. You picked me up for a reason.
Yeah, this is
I'm
why.
not going to waste your money. So.
Yeah, this is why you guys picked me up, because I can do things like this in situations like this. And that's something that I think is probably why. I mean, I've seen him hit before. I've seen how he plays in big games, and he never seems to let the moment get too big for him. So I think that's probably why I picked him to have a big series from a Red Sox perspective, because he's I mean, it's just the nature of how he's been since he came up with the Rangers. I believe it was 9-10 years ago. So it's just basically been who he has been for his entire career.
So moving forward now, we're going to start getting into each individual game and taking a look at the pitching matchups, starting with tonight. Battle of 2 left-handed pitchers. It's CC Sabathia versus Brian Johnson. Of course, this game was supposed to go to Chris Sale, but obviously putting him on the DL has taken him out. And now we're stuck with Brian Johnson, who has, it's not fair to say we've been stuck with Brian Johnson, because he's actually pitched pretty well, but
yeah, he's pitched better than that 1-3 record that he has.
When you have to pick between Brian Johnson and Chris Sale, I think 100% of the population's going with Chris Sale.
Most likely, except maybe Brian Johnson's wife, and even then, I think she might pick Chris Sale. Honey, I love you, but come on, it's Christopher Allen Sale. Yeah.
So what do you think's going to happen in this one with the 2 lefties going at it?
It could go one of 2 ways for me. I mean, I'm not going to say, the Red Sox could win or the Yankees could win. The one of 2 ways is this game could be, for some reason, a pitcher's duel where it's like a 1-1 game going into like the 7th inning, or this could be a barn burner. This could be a barn burner, and it's like 8-7 after 5, and it could. And I think I'm actually more prone to. I feel more likely to pick, or more inclined to pick, the pitcher's duel, because Brian Johnson's pitched pretty well this year, especially at Fenway Park, and he's probably only going to go 5 innings anyway. But the Red Sox just haven't hit CC Sabathia. I mean, the best way for them to win this game, or since he lost all of his velocity, the best way for the Red Sox to win this game is to keep this a low-scoring affair. Like, if Brian Johnson goes out and gives up 3 runs in the first inning, it's probably a done deal at that point, because the way CC's pitched against the Red Sox over the course of the last few seasons, it's just tough to see them getting 2 runs off of him, let alone 3 to even consider tying a game. So for the Red Sox to be successful tonight, they've got to keep it a low-scoring game, or they have to be the team that scores first. Because if they can get a run in the first, or maybe even a couple in the first inning, CC's back against the ropes. They can maybe blow one open on them. But if the Yankees score a couple in the first, or they get up by 2 or 3, it's going to be tough for the Red Sox to come back, especially with how loaded that Yankees bullpen has become.
Yeah, and it's a bit concerning for me thinking about this game though, because you mentioned Johnson probably only going to go 5, and we really had to work that bullpen against Philadelphia. Granted, we had the day off in between, but between the 13-inning game on Monday and then Pomeranz only going 5 innings on Tuesday, the bullpen in total had to work 9 innings across 2 nights, and we used up a lot of arms. We had Barnes was in there, Hembry, Thornburg, Kelly. I think we were able to save Kimbrel, but that's
Brazier
it.
Pitched
Brazier
too.
was in.
Barnes pitched an inning in the second game.
The second game.
But I mean the thing is with having that off day is some guys also didn't pitch in game 1. Or didn't pitch in game 2 of that series, so they got 2 days off, and the guys that pitched.
Thornburg.
And I don't think anybody really was taxed that much in game 2 of that series. So I'm not entirely concerned with the bullpen, unless it gets into a situation where you go into extra innings and you have to go with Hector Velasquez in the 10th or 11th against the Yankees, right. And the Yankees are still rolling out closers Betances can go to the 10th. Oh, we still haven't used Britton, so he can go the 11th. And you're just like, okay, I hope Hector Velasquez has a scoreless inning here.
Yeah.
Because we're screwed. We got to make sure that we're getting to their last reliever in the bullpen, and they maybe have to throw out a position player against us so we can win.
Yeah, we definitely are going to have to work some pitch counts and hopefully get to some guys.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get to the bullpen, I mean, regardless, I mean, you like to say get to the bullpen early, but in this case, in this game, you would hope to if you're getting to the bullpen early, it's like the second or third inning, and you're up by 5 or 6 runs. Because, I mean, we've been I've talked about this a lot. The Yankees adding to their bullpen at the deadline doesn't mean jack if they can't even give a lead to them. And with the current state of their rotation, it's if you can get a lead early, and with the fact that they don't have Judge and Sanchez in their lineup, their bullpen's basically been neutralized right away, so you don't even have to do well against them as long as you're able to preserve a lead and your starter is able to give you 5-6 good innings, because you'll still have Thornburg, Barnes, and Kimbrel obviously, and Brazier, who's pitched very well, and Workman, who got called up for sale going on the disabled list,
which he should have never been sent down anyway.
Right, he just had a couple of really bad starts, or bad outings, I should say. Yeah,
looking at the numbers though, this game on paper should be pretty close if you just look at the starting pitchers. Sabathia 6-4 with a 3.53 ERA, and Johnson 1-3, but with only a 3.45 ERA in his outings this year. And I think you said it, and I definitely agree. I think Johnson has pitched a lot better than a 1-3 record suggests, and that does kind of get backed up with the 3.45 ERA. I think it's just a matter of circumstance that he doesn't have more wins, because obviously as a starter who was primarily in the bullpen before that, they don't want him working late into games, and so they've only been giving him 4.5 innings.
That, and the fact that he's been in the bullpen for most of the season, and I think typically reliever records, unless you look at Hector Velasquez, who's an outlier because he's 7-0, but for the most part, if you're a reliever, you're probably going to have more losses than wins. He's been given a lot of bad luck, no decisions, mainly because of games that he's left with a lead, but he's left in the 5th inning, so he doesn't get the win for that game. And then just his last start against the Twins, he left with a lead and they just couldn't hold on to it. So he's had a lot of bad luck. I mean, we're talking about a guy who could realistically, since he got put back in the rotation, have a win-loss record of probably 5-3, maybe even 6-3. Yeah. But he's pitched better than that 1-3 record would indicate, and tonight's a huge test for him, because I think it's pretty safe to say the Red Sox will at least make it to the wild card game. It would take a catastrophic collapse for them not to. So you're trying to shape up who you want on your team in October, and if Johnson can pitch well against the Yankees tonight, and if he has to pitch against say Houston or Cleveland or the Yankees again later on in the season, if he pitches well, you're talking about a guy that you think could be a very reliable piece to your bullpen, or even your rotation if somebody gets hurt in October. It's a legit possibility that we could see him later on down the road.
So moving on to Game 2 now. It's going to be Luis Severino taking on Rick Porcello. Now, these two have very similar records. Severino at 14-4, Porcello at 13-4. ERAs are tale of two tapes. It's 294 for Severino and a 403 for Porcello. But it's worth noting that Severino hasn't been all that strong in his last few outings, whereas Porcello is actually kind of dialed in with the exception of his last start.
Yeah, this is a big game for Luis Severino, and if you had to look at every single game on paper going into it, this would probably be the one game that you would for sure give the Yankees because Severino was a Cy Young candidate before the All-Star break. But at this point, I mean, I don't even think there's a game that you could just write off and say the Red Sox are going to lose this game just because of how bad Severino's pitched lately. And we're talking about a guy who just got waxed by Kansas City, and before that he got beat by Tampa. We're talking about a guy that, like, his ERA has jumped from under 2, I think it was 198, and now it's 294.
It was 198 after the game against Boston, which was on July 1st, and now sitting here on August 2nd, he's at a 294.
Yeah,
so.
He's been terrible in his last 4 or 5 starts. So, I mean, you would like, if you were a Yankees fan, you'd like to think that, oh, now he's pitching in a big game and he's going to all of a sudden turn it on, but I would honestly question that too, because his first big game he ever pitched last year against the Twins, he was gone before the first inning was even over.
Right.
In the wild card game, but like we're definitely going to see if it's going to be more of the same from him, or if he's going to all of a sudden figure it out. Because if he figures it out, it's going to be tough for the Red Sox to do anything with him, because he's one of the premier arms in the game, especially with Porcello against him. But yeah, I mean, I think the only thing, because basically what you're gonna get from Porcello is probably close to 6 innings, 4 runs or less, which should be enough to get it done, especially if Severino has another one of his dud outings like he's had over the course of the last month.
Yeah, and that Boston game on July 1st was his last really good start, and since then he's pitched 19 and a third innings, and he's given up 19 earned runs, 20 overall. So he's working at just under a 9 ERA, which
in 30 days, basically.
Yeah, it's not a good number for somebody who you want to set up as being the ace of your team.
Right.
So hopefully,
go ahead. His failures were part of the reason why the Yankees had to go out and get starting pitching at the deadline. I mean, Sonny Gray too. But Severino not pitching well, you go out there and you're like, oh my God, not only do we have to get 1 because Gray's been so bad, but we may even have to get 2 because Severino might just be burned out and he has got nothing left. So we shall see. I guess we should see tomorrow night.
So Severino definitely is struggling, and that's going to be very interesting to watch. And it's another reason that I picked Benintendi to have a really good series here is because he's hit well against Severino when Severino's been dominating everybody. So now you throw in Severino struggling, and you're looking at Benintendi potentially having just a ridiculous series because it's a pitcher that he's already hitting well against, and now that pitcher's coming in struggling. It plays right into his hand, and hopefully that can lead to Benintendi just picking up a good series and making me look like a genius. But talking, hey. It's only slightly fair. But talking about Porcello again, to keep it on this, been strong record-wise all year, 13-4, despite not posting, great numbers. As of late, kind of been hit around a bit. The month of July, he carried a 5.74 ERA, but he went 4-1 in that month. So he's putting us, despite having high ERA, he's putting us in positions to win. And that ERA was really only messed up by the game against Toronto, where he only went 2 innings and gave up 8 earned, because the rest of them, 2 earned on the second against Washington, 3 earned in 7 innings against Kansas City, 6 shutout innings against Baltimore, and 4 earned against Minnesota. So, and that was across 5 2/3 innings. So really, just that Toronto series that was messing up all the numbers.
Right, but the fact of the matter is he's been giving up a ton of hits lately. And when you're facing a team like the Yankees, if you're giving up a ton of hits, there's going to be a ton of runs. I know Judge and Sanchez being out of the lineup helps you a little bit, or actually really a lot. But if Severino has a good outing, you need Porcello to be on his A game, because if he goes out there, and like I said about Johnson, if he goes out there and he gives up a couple in the first inning, and then Severino goes out and has a 1-2-3, you are probably sitting there going, "Yeah, this game's going to be tough to win." But yeah, I mean, and you compare their last months, both of them, both for Severino and for Porcello. And Porcello's last month had a 5-something ERA, 5.74, I think you said. Severino was just under 9 in July, or probably less than that, because his first start was great
the Red
against
Sox
Boston.
game was strong.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting, because you got a couple of guys with Cy Young stuff, because Porcello obviously won one, so I technically have to say he has Cy Young stuff. And then Luis Severino, who was a contender for it, beat at the first half of the year, and then since then it's just been off the cliff bad. But yeah, kind of like tonight's start. I guess we'll see. There's definitely 2 question marks going in that one.
And then we get to the Saturday game, game 3 of 4, and I'm really intrigued by this one, because it's 2 guys who, a week ago, maybe a little bit more, neither one of the projected starters were involved in this rivalry in any way. It's J.A. Happ pitching for the Yankees and Nathan Eovaldi pitching for the Red Sox. Eovaldi, of course, just had a fantastic outing in his first start with the Sox on Sunday. He went 7 strong innings and looked amazing. He comes in with a 3.80 ERA. Only a 4-4 record, but you've got to remember who he was playing for before that. And J.A. Happ, fresh arm for the Yankees, comes in with a 4.05 ERA. What do you look at? Are you as intrigued by this matchup as I am, or am I just crazy?
It's kind of funny, because, I mean, even when Sale was slated to start tonight, I looked at this series and I actually circled the Saturday game as the game that's probably the most must-watch, because this is basically the Red Sox traded for Eovaldi because he was a flamethrower, has been dominating all year long, and the Yankees traded for Happ because he notoriously has pitched very well against the Red Sox in his career. So this is probably the game to watch. I mean, especially when you can factor in the fact that the numbers are pretty similar. I know Eovaldi's got a slightly better ERA, but the numbers are fairly similar. But when you look at the rest of the rotation and the matchups, you got, Severino's got an overrun ERA advantage. Sabathia's and Johnson's is close, but Johnson's been in the bullpen for part of the year. And then Price and Tanaka both aren't really pitching to the level that, Price since the break has, but for the overall, both haven't been pitching to the level that you would expect them to. This is the game that I think is the most must-watch, and it could be a low-scoring game, and it would be awesome to watch Eovaldi come out there with a victory, because people are like, oh, he pitched well against the Twins. I mean, we really won't know how good he's going to be for this team until after he starts against the Yankees. And if he goes out there and dominates on Saturday night, you're talking about a guy that, could potentially sneak his way into your rotation during October.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. Happ has had 1 start for the Yankees since being traded. He gave up 1 run across 6 innings in a win against the Kansas City Royals. But, of course, Eovaldi, in his 1 start for the Red Sox, went 7 innings, no runs against the Twins. So I'm very looking forward to that. Weird start time. 4:05 on a Saturday. You would think pretty much every game of the series would want to be prime time, but whatever. But we do get prime time on Sunday night at 8:05 start to the finale with Masahiro Tanaka, who comes in with a ridiculous record. Just looked at that, but not really lights out numbers. He comes in 9-2 with a 3.84 ERA. And he just bridged 100 strikeouts in his last start. And David Price on the mound for the Sox. He comes in 11-6 with just under a 4 ERA, sitting at 3.97 right now. Price obviously has had very well documented struggles against the Yankees. Is this the series where not only do you need him to pick it up, but is this the series where he does pick it up against the Yankees?
Well, I think the answer to both questions is I think the you need him to pick it up, and I think he's going to. It's also tough to kind of gauge that because two guys who have notoriously had a lot of success against him, in Sanchez and Judge, are both not playing in the series because both of them are on the disabled list. But the fact of the matter is, he's still got to face Stanton, he's still got to face Torres, he still has to face Hicks, he still has to face Gregorius. A lot of guys that have hit him pretty well in the past. But if he can go out there and dominate, which I think they need him to, especially with Sale out of the series, I think he's going to answer the call, and I think a lot of that has to do with how he's pitched since the break. I know one of his starts was against Detroit, but against Philly, he looked locked in. His command was on par with how it's been for most of his career prior to his Red Sox career. I think this is going to be a game where he goes out there and he pitches his ass off, and he really shows what the Red Sox are paying him to do. And I think, what they're paying him for, and hopefully that leads to a strong outing and a victory.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that he does turn it around. And like you said, he's been really strong in his technically three starts, but one of them didn't count. And it was only an inning, so it's really tough to gauge whether he was going to be dominant or if it was just a strong inning. Definitely hopeful that he can pick it up and bring us home with the win. Worth noting, though, looking at the hitting statistics for the Red Sox, across 14 at-bats against Masahiro Tanaka, JD Martinez has knocked 3 balls over the wall.
Including a grand slam. I remember the grand slam he hit at the beginning of the year. I think that was the Tyler Austin game, but I could be wrong. But that he hit a grand slam against him in April.
He's driven in 7 runs against Tanaka and comes in with a 500 average, so look for him to have a strong game, which he usually does anyway, but have it be a particularly strong game on Sunday night. That should be very interesting to watch. But now we're going to move into sort of speculation and prediction territory. Should we start with the bad ones or the good ones?
No, let's start with the bad ones. Let's feel negative. Let's start with the bad ones.
Alright, so I think the answer to this, at least from the Red Sox side of things, is going to be pretty obvious. But if you had to pick one starter in this 4-game stretch for Boston, well, for both teams, but who do you think is going to have the worst start?
I don't know if we're actually going to agree on this one, but for the Red Sox, I'm picking Porcello. I don't think we're going to agree on that one, but just how his last month has gone, the fact that you look at the other 3 guys that are going in the series with him for the Red Sox. Johnson's pitched very well. Evaldi, I know it was only 1 start, but he pitched very well, and then David Price has been on a tear since the All-Star break. For the Yankees, the worst start for me is actually going to be J.A. Happ.
Okay.
I know last time he pitched against the Red Sox was with Toronto. It was the game Mookie had that 13 pitch at bat that ended in a grand slam. But only one of those runs was actually earned, and it was Mookie's run on that. But I don't know. I feel like Happ's a guy that's never pitched, other than when he was with the Phillies in the beginning of his career. He's never really pitched in a huge game. Like, I know Evaldi really hasn't either, but I just feel like stuff-wise, Evaldi's got him beat there. The offensive firepower behind him, the defense behind him, it favors the Red Sox a lot more, and I don't think Happ really has the fortitude to go out there and dominate on the mound for the Yankees against the Red Sox at Fenway Park on a Saturday afternoon. In a huge game, especially if the Yankees take one or both of the first 2 games. That game's going to be huge because that puts them in a position to at least gain 2 games on the Red Sox in the series. If they win 3 of 4, they exit the series with a 3-game deficit without Judge or Sanchez. So I just don't see him having the stuff to go out there and dominate against the Red Sox in a huge game like Saturday afternoon will be.
It's interesting that you took Porcello. I'm going to go with the low-hanging fruit, and it's going to be Brian Johnson. He has pitched well, but
Before you go on, I'm going to ask, is it because he's going to flat out be bad, or is he just not going to be as good as the rest of them? Like, is he going to go out there and just lay an egg, or is he going to be like 5 innings, 2 runs, but the rest of the rotation is going to pitch well?
Probably going to be the rest of the rotation pitching well, and it's going to be he's not going to have as long of a start, so you aren't going to be able to look at it and really go, unless he goes out there and goes, 5, 6 innings and only gives up like 2 hits, then obviously he'll have proven me wrong. But if he goes out there and even if he only gives up 1 run, if it's across 5 innings and then you have a Porcello going 7 giving up 2, or Price going 7 giving up 3 but only on a few hits, like, it's all situational. But I do think that of the lot, Johnson's going to have the weakest start. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be weak, because like we said, he is pitching well. But I think when you look at all the factors mixed together, I just think that he's, of the 4 guys going, I trust him to go out there and pitch well the least.
Fair enough. Now, how about from the Yankees side of things?
From the Yankees, I'm going to go Severino. All the evidence points to Severino just having another atrocious start. I mentioned 19 and a third innings with 19 earned runs, but even in his last 9 innings, which is across 2 games, he's given up 12. So it's not like it's getting better. If anything, it's getting worse, this slump that he's in. And you know what? We can turn it around at any minute, but I think that he's been on such a cold streak. And the Red Sox lineup has also been on a cold streak. And I feel like this is the game where the lineup turns it around, but Severino doesn't. And I think the lineup's going to come alive, and Severino's going to falter because of it. So, and that means overall for the series, even above Johnson, I think Severino's going to have the worst start of all 8 guys.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, I consider Severino for my worst start too. I just think he's too good to not eventually right the ship, and just based on the fact that the last good start he had was against Boston, it's not like that's the start that began his slump where he went out there and he went 4, allowed like 7 runs. That was the last time he pitched well. I don't know if he just looks at that and he's just like, oh, I dominated them before, I can just go out there and do it again. Because he's got the stuff to turn around at any point. So I just think Happ is more prone to just completely choke than Severino would be.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I just think all the evidence, I'm looking just based on trends, and Severino is trending down much worse than Happ. But let's move on to something a little more positive, and hopefully one where we don't get proven completely wrong. That's going to be who's going to have the best start for each team, and then overall.
I want you to go first for this one.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the Yankees, and I think the best start is probably going to be Sabathia. The way he pitched when the Sox went to New York that last series he was really strong. Just overall against Boston, he's been strong. And his numbers this year are solid enough, and I think I'm not looking at them right now, and I don't feel like pulling them back up, but I think he had, besides Severino, who was helped a lot by his first half, I think Sabathia had like the next best numbers, and I feel like that's going to continue in Boston, and I think he's going to be helped by the fact that Johnson, I think, is going to have a slightly poor start, and I think that's going to help him because that puts Sabathia in a prime position to get the win. And of course, if he walks out with a win, then on paper he's going to look like he had the better start than anybody who had a no decision or a loss. So I think all the factors are in line for him. For best start for the Red Sox, this one's tough. And as much as I really want to go with one guy, I'm going to actually do something that I didn't even consider until now. and it's just because, for the same reasons that I'm picking Severino to have a bad start based on how he's trending, I'm picking David Price to have the best start for the Red Sox based on how he's trending. I think since the All-Star break, he has pitched well enough to have earned a lot of trust from me. 14 and a third official innings and only 1 run. It's a sub-1 ERA across 2 starts, and one of those starts was against a division leader in the Philadelphia Phillies. So I am fully ready to eat these words come Monday when we're reviewing the series, and Price is coming off a start where he went 3 innings and gave up 6 runs. But I think going into it, the way he's trending, the fact that it is at home, and there's 2 guys in Judge and Sanchez who are out of that Yankees lineup, I think he really only is going to have to contend with Torres and Stanton, who could potentially hit him around. And I think it's going to be Price having not just the best start for the Sox, but the best start in the series. And I'm even going to go a step further, and I'm going to say 7 innings, 1 run, 5 hits.
Okay, actually predicting stat lines. For the Yankees,
Only for that one.
For the Yankees, I'm actually going to pick Masahiro Tanaka to have the best start of the bunch, even though statistically his ERA is not counting half because I'm just going to base off the Yankees numbers. Stats for the Yankees this year, Tanaka's got the worst ERA of the group. I think the fact that last year, I remember in October, he was lights out in a couple of his outings. So I think he's basically as close to a big game pitcher or as close to a sure thing in a big game as Sabathia had been when he first came to New York. So with the potential big, like how big that game might be on Sunday, he probably will have the best start because I feel like he's always had his best starts in big games. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get the win, but I could see him going out there and going 7 innings, a 2-run ball. I mean, it just kind of feels like something that could happen based on his track record of pitching on nationally televised games, in big games, and stuff like that. From the Red Sox side of things, I would love to pick David Price, and I'm not going to pick him just based on the fact that I think a different guy's going to have an even better start than him, and I'm picking Nathan Eovaldi, and I know it's been basically a pattern so far on this show specifically where I'm picking new guys to just go out and dominate, but I really think Nathan Eovaldi, with the fact that Judge and Sanchez are out of the lineup, that's 2 guys that can crush the pitch fastballs elevated that are no longer in the lineup, but Nate Eovaldi throws a lot of high fastballs, 97 to 99 miles an hour. He's got wipeout, breaking stuff. I could legitimately see him going out there and actually pitching better in the Yankee start than he did against the Twins. Like I'm going to go out and say that he has the best start of the entire series, and I'm going to try and pick out a stat line myself, and I'm going to say he's going to go 8 innings and 1-run ball. I know statistically that's not better than the Twins start, but when you factor in the fact it's the Yankees and not the Twins, I'd say that's a more impressive start than what he did against the Twins. I'm actually going to go and say 2 runs, not 1 run. That's a little excessive. But 8 innings, 2 runs. He's going to strike out 8 or 9 guys, and walk. And he's going to keep
on the strikeouts.
And he's going to walk 2 or less.
See, I'm not surprised that you went with Eovaldi, considering how strong he was and how high you were on him when we started talking about how he was traded to Boston.
I've been a fan of him. I've been a fan of him for a few years. So the fact that he's actually pitching for the team that I root for makes me a little bit more excited about him. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised that you went with him. I almost went with him myself, if I'm being completely honest. But the way that Price has been, and I want him to go out there and have those good starts because, you know what, as much as he's earned it, I'm really sick of hearing all the people, all the reporters, everybody on radio, all the websites, every journalist, and even, us, we've talked about it. I'm sick of hearing how bad David Price has been and how he's not worth the money. I'd like this to finally be the point where he says, you know what? Yeah, I do want praise rather than negative press. And he's definitely picked it up since the break. So I'm not surprised you went with Eovaldi. I'm definitely not going to doubt the fact that Eovaldi could have a great start. But I just am really hopeful that it's going to be Price who has the best one.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
Now
I
let's
can
move
agree with that.
on to, and obviously, if you really think that it's gonna be that good of a start, you can pick the same pitcher that you picked for the the best start. But if you had to pick one guy across these two rosters who's gonna be the biggest part of the series, who's gonna be the series MVP for these 4 games?
Believe it or not, I'm going to actually pick a reliever for both of them.
Okay.
For the Yankees, I'm going to pick Dylan Betances over the course of the
Okay, not even
last.
going Britain.
Nope. Over the course of the last couple of seasons, I feel like he's been wild against the Red Sox, and he's had a lot of hard attack innings. Other than the home run or the walk off that Hanley hit off of him in 2016, though, he's not been really taxed for much damage other than pitch count. But I think he's going to play a huge role in this series for the Yankees. And for the Red Sox, I'm going to be picking Tyler Thornburg. Not even Kimbrel.
Okay.
I think Thornburg might even have to go out and get a save in this series. 4 games,
Ooh.
we could potentially see him going 3 of the 4. Obviously, it's unheard of for a guy to go and pitch 4 games in a row. But I could see him legitimately going out there and getting a save. And we could even, if we get into another situation like we did against Minnesota, and he goes out there in a close game and pitches the 8th, I could see him going 2 innings in an outing too. So.
Really?
In my opinion, he is my pick to be the Red Sox MVP of this series because we've seen him perform at a high level in recent outings, but we've never seen him against the Yankees. And if he goes out there and dominates, and he basically not only earns that 8th inning spot for sure, but he earns a lot of trust within the Red Sox fan base, the Red Sox organization. I'm picking Tyler Thornburg to be my series MVP. And for the Yankees, I picked Betances.
That's really interesting. You not only with who you went for, but just the fact that you went with relievers for both. I definitely didn't see that coming. For me, if I had to pick a guy for the Yankees, I mean, is it too obvious to go with Stanton?
I wouldn't say it's too obvious, just based on the fact that I feel like he's been kind of a disappointment for them. Even though his numbers have come along lately, he's still hitting a lot of home runs. I think that people had such high expectations for him that he's had a relatively down year. I don't think it's too obvious to go with Stan. I mean, this is probably the biggest series he's ever played in his entire career. So
I just think this is the perfect opportunity for him to really step it up and really, not that he really needs to step it up. His numbers are good enough anyway, but just to really push into that next even higher tier. I think without the actual obvious names like Sanchez and more importantly Judge, I think that next guy up on that rung is Stanton, and I think that all the signs point to him being the one to have a pretty decent series. For the Sox, this is interesting because there's so many you could choose from. You could pick Mookie, who's been slumping since the All-Star break, and it seems like he's due to have a breakout game. You have JD, who's been pretty average since the All-Star break. Well, JD average, not league average. I don't know who to pick from the Red Sox, and I know that's kind of cheating, but
it's very cheating. You're kind of a coward.
Yeah, a little bit. You know what? I'm gonna go with the left field pick here. Not like literal left field and go Benintendi, but I'm gonna go Bogarts. Bogarts has just been solid.
Yeah, it is weird.
And
like people when people talk about the Red Sox, they talk about Betts, Benintendi, Martinez, Sale, Kimbrel, Price. But then there's just Bogarts quietly having probably the most consistent year from start to finish on the team. I mean, other than JD and Mookie, because I think those guys are in such a different tier that they kind of just don't count. But like from an offensive perspective, Bogarts has been one of the better players in this lineup from start to finish. And his slumps haven't even been all that bad either. Like they've been 0 for 13s, and he busts out with a 4 for 5.
And I think that consistency is what's really gonna what's really gonna make him the standout in this series is I feel like he's gonna go out there and have 4 if he starts in all 4, which I would imagine he would considering the day off. Um, if he goes out there for 4 games, and even if he's just 1 for 4, 2 for 4, in all 4 games, if he can provide that constant spark in big situations, and not even necessarily in big situations, but if you can always be like, all right, Bogarts is coming up to the plate, I know what I'm gonna get, and
if it's the 5th inning, it'll be a pop out to second base,
which he did the other night against Philly. I don't remember if it was the 5th, but it was a pop out to second, and God, that is the trademark Bogarts out. But
that is, it's beautiful. Like, we don't
but
need
if
to
he
get
can
mad
go out,
anymore because we expect it.
if he can go out there and give you, 5 or 6 hits across these 6 games, and then add a couple of walks to that, and maybe a couple of RBIs, I think you're looking at Bogarts being the MVP of the series. But if I had to pick the one overall, it's probably going to be Stanton, because if I'm giving Bogarts MVP based on consistency versus Stanton an MVP for performance, I think performance wins out over consistency when you're just looking at a 4-game series.
Right. Because we're not going to give, because we don't give the MVP in the MLB or the AL in the National League to the guy who's most consistent from start to finish. Because if that were the case, then it would be Mike Trout's award every single year, and then whoever in the NL. But from a performance standpoint, yeah, I think if you were to pick between Xander Bogaerts and Stanton, from the reasons you gave, it'd definitely be Stanton. In my opinion, like, it's tough to give an overall reliever when you compare two relievers.
Yeah. That's going to depend on how the games go.
Right, because if Thornburg goes out there and he goes pitches in 3 of the 4 games, doesn't allow a run, but in 2 of his 3 outings they lose.
Yeah.
Then
obviously
he wasn't that big. But if he goes out there and he does like what I said, he may even he might go 2 innings in a game. He may get a save in a game. Like I could like that. That's probably enough for me to be like, yeah, probably MVP.
Yeah,
probably the MVP, overall MVP of the entire series. But I'm still sticking with my guns with 2 relievers.
Before we wrap it up here, and we start plugging all kinds of stuff with Facebook, Patreon, YouTube, whatever. One of these teams, well, they don't have to because it's a 4-game series. They could split it, but both of these teams are going to be looking to win this series. But if you had to pick one area of the game that's going to be important for them to do it, what's the biggest thing that both teams have to do to walk out with at least 3 wins in the series?
The Red Sox, the obvious answer for them is to make sure that their bullpen is strong, and make sure that the Yankees don't hand it off to their bullpen with a lead. For the Yankees, it's literally just going to be make sure their relievers when they start going to the bullpen, they have a lead. So for the Red Sox, I think if they're up by 1 run, they removing their starter, they're going to have to get dominant performances from each of their relievers, and making sure that they're up by enough runs where they can have a little bit of wiggle room when the Yankees go to their bullpen. And then for the Yankees, if they're up by 1 or 2 runs in the 6th inning and they have Britton coming in, then you're kind of like, yeah, this is going to be tough. So it's going to revolve around the bullpen. It's just a matter of who has the lead when both teams go to it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of echo what you said as a key for the Red Sox and kind of tweak it a little bit. I'm gonna say if you do go to that bullpen, whether it's winning or losing, get it really early in the series, like before the 5th inning if you can, because the Yankees have a very strong bullpen, especially after the break. So if you can get them to use it up and across these 4 games have to have that bullpen in there for 13, 14 innings, I think that gives you the best chance to walk out with wins, because you're wearing out guys and you're making that bullpen ineffective because they're coming in tired when they need to come in clutch. But for the Yankees, I'm kind of going to just chicken out a little bit and say, don't let that happen. Don't let the Red Sox get to your bullpen early, and just they're going to need their starting pitching to come through. They're going to need big games from Severino. They're going to need Happ to go out there and prove that there's a reason why they got him. Tanaka is going to have to play play some good ball, and Sabathia probably will. So yeah, I think it's going to be important for the Sox to get to the bullpen. It's important for the Yankees not to let the Sox get to the bullpen. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're in the same ballpark for both of them.
Yeah. Well, you're in Fenway tonight. I'm on the
That's
couch,
true.
but whatever. I know what you mean in figurative language world. But, so yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting series to watch. It kicks off. Well, it doesn't kick off, isn't it? Football. First pitch tonight, going to be just past 7 o'clock. And we will definitely be watching it. Some of us from a better spot than others. Whatever. That's all that we can think to cover for this one. So we hope you enjoy it. And we hope you tune into all of our podcasts moving forward. You can like us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/2manadv. You can also listen to this podcast via YouTube on the 2-Man Advantage YouTube channel if you would rather not get a podcast app. As we said in the last episode, in case you missed it, it's just this podcast. There's no video aspect to it other than you get to look at the Red Sox logo for however long our episodes go. We are now on iTunes and Google Play, so you don't have to get a third-party podcast app to listen to us. We are right there on your built-in providers on your phones. Just search 2-Man Advantage on Google Play or on iTunes and look for the logo that's on the current Podbean profile or wherever you're currently getting this podcast from, or it's the same picture as the Facebook profile picture, so you can find it there if you don't want to go hunting all over the place. So yeah, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, all that. You already know where to find us on Podbean or on your favorite podcast provider, but if you could give us a subscribe, that would be great. If you could download these episodes rather than just streaming them, you'd really be helping us out too. And if you really want to help us out, you can head over to patreon.com/2manadv. There you can pledge any amount of money that you can afford, and we will appreciate every single donation that we get. We have tiered rewards that include shout-outs and whatnot. So if you could go over there and support us, we would really, really, really appreciate it. And also, just share this around with anybody. If you enjoy what we do and you think others would enjoy it, show it to them. You know, just give them 5 minutes and give them a little sample of what we're about. But that has been the Yankees Red Sox preview, a huge series. We're so excited for it. I can't wait for it to get started tonight. And I've been Dylan. That has been Jordan. And we will catch you on Monday with the review of this mammoth series and preview the next one.
All right, peace out, guys.